A returnee from the days of Medarot 8, sporting new mechanics, lots of new models, and a very powerful bird type here as you see. It is GBR00 Yata Crow, with a kit of full charge, double charge buster, light legs, and the leg ability of Carnage, which buffs power when attacked and a part is broken upon being attacked. Now, as a veteran from the days of Medarot 8, Yata Crow has been in this series for a pretty fair bit of years now, in comparison to some of the newer models that are released, or re-released, of course, in Medarot S. But that is most certainly not stopping this Crow type from making his mark on the field, and it is also worth noting that this is not the first time that we have seen Yata Crow, as prior to this, he was seen in previous levels or dungeons as an enemy NPC that the player was able to fight, although he was not capable of transforming at the time, and now, of course, with the meta change update, is capable of releasing his full potential right from square one. Full charge on the head part is, of course, a special skill that needs no mastery on a medal, but upon use, it will sap the head HP down to 50%, but also fully cap the user's meta-force gauge. Now, for anyone that makes use of Cross Messiah, or anyone that uses a full charge type skill, this really goes without saying that this is just another instance of full charge that you can capitalize on and make use of if you can't quite find your way into filling a bunch of roles in it on the team. And this is very good on anyone that makes use of any Metaforce reliant nuking attacks, such as, in Yata Crow's case, Charge Buster, or Charge Blade, or Hyper Charge Blade, or Ghost Shot, or Beam Sword, or whatever. This is a very easy way to fill up that charge gauge and grant you the highest damage bonuses possible right from turn 2 forward, and guarantee that you'll be laying on the highest amount of pain possible go through the rest of the fight. Right and left arm of Charge Buster are conventional shooting-based skills that get damage bonuses relative to the amount of charge in Yata Crow's gauge. In addition, however, upon using that Metaforce charge, Yata Crow will also consume a small amount of charge, usually about 5 to 10% or so when capped or uncapped, or not fully capped, upon firing the target. Naturally, this means that every consecutive shot, unless he's using a hunter or sniper-based medal, will be progressively weaker and weaker, even if just by a little bit, the more times he uses it without refilling his gauge, which of course is where full charge comes in if he's not already used it. Flight legs means that Yata Crow will have pretty solid coverage across most terrains, but excel mostly in high base mobility and high base evade at the cost of basically paper armor, and that is most certainly no exception here. When it comes to head HP, he's packing just barely at 3,000 there, arms about 2650 and 2550 each, and legs at 3100 means he's most certainly very light on the armor. But melee resist to 413 and shoot resist to 739 only adds to this even more so in his case, meaning that he is absolutely going to go down quick if something takes him out or manages to outrun him to the line. In addition, he is packing a base mobility of 888, which is very good and par for the course when it comes to flight legs, but an evade of almost 1800 is where a lot of his base stats are going to be going, because instead of focusing on survivability, he's going to be very heavily relying on that high evade to guarantee he stays on the field as much as possible to keep the damage low by grazing attacks or by just outright dodging them entirely. In addition, because he is flight-legged, he is also very much so susceptible and weak to anti-air, so caution is of course advised if using Yata Crow on the field. Now, Yata Crow is also fully capable of transforming into a true bird-like form, tucking in his body, adding glowing panels, and switching his single leg out for a pair of legs in particular, and changing his kit out entirely for a melee-based kit of Desperate, Flash, Charge Blade, maintains flight legs but changes his leg ability to Auto Charge, which passively fills his Metaforce gauge each turn an action is completed. Now, in this form, Yata Crow becomes much more aggressively oriented and really doesn't rely not quite as heavily on Metaforce charge as he would in his base form, although having it is still something he can most certainly capitalize on and make use of as long as he's on the field. Desperate, as a support skill on Drive A, is a support skill that upon activation will boost damage dealt by about, I believe doubling or tripling damage if I do recall correctly, at the cost that upon completing the turn, Yata Crow will take 50% of the damage he dealt as recoil damage. That means that I would highly recommend some caution if you are going to make use of this, but it will most certainly capitalize on Yata getting in and out quickly and really laying on the hurt while he's on the field. Flash on Drive B is an ailment-based skill that upon attacking the target, he will flash all his LEDs at the target brightly and blind them. When upon a blinded target, it will effectively nullify them from being able to dodge or defend through their cooldown and their next heat phase. In addition, it also will auto-cancel any action that they might be having if they are in their heat phase. So it works very similar to Bug or Virus in many instances as a turn-skipping move, but with a couple extra added effects. Essentially, I like to consider Flash as like a Deathlock Light to a point, as even though it only lasts one turn, it gives you basically the same effects minus the debuff to heat and cool. Charge Blade on Drive C is a conventional melee skill that basically is the antithesis and counterpart to Charge Buster, and that is simply put that as a basic melee attack, it will get a damage bonus relative to the amount of charge in Yata gauge. And in addition to this, it will also consume a small amount of charge, again about 10 to 5% or so, depending on if fully capped or not, upon using it. That being said, with all these uses of consuming his own gauge, between full charge and everything else, it is highly recommended that if you are going to use Yata, a hunter or sniper nature metal will most certainly be in his best interest. But Yata actually can synergize with himself pretty well in the fact that in change mode, he's packing auto charge as a leg ability. That means that the longer he stays in this form, he can progressively fill his own gauge over time as long as he's not taken down too quickly. And in this form, his base power does certainly go up pretty exponentially compared to what it was before. Flash packing just about 1150 there, Charge Blade at just shy of 1800, but its leg stats are definitely going to be the big change point here when it comes to how Yata plays. In his base form, he is definitely going to be very fragile, incredibly squishy, and a lot of caution is advised if you're going to use him. But in change mode, he exchanges all of his stats out for basically full upgrades across the board. His mobility goes from 888 to about 1011, which is very nice. Evade goes up just a little over 2k in this case, which doesn't get as nearly as high of a boost, but his melee resist at 1253 and his shoot resist at almost 1200 most certainly get the bonuses that he needs in order to stay alive on the field as longest. Of course, though, because he is flight-legged in this form as well, caution is best advised against anyone that is using anti-air or may possibly pack it, as it will shoot this bird down faster than anticipated while he's on the field. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I still do have to rate Yata a pretty solid 8.5 out of 10. Despite the rather strange kit he has between Full Charge, Charge Blade, Desperate Flash, and then Charge Buster, it's a very weird kit, but it synergizes strangely well with itself. Not just in regular form, but also when in change mode when he gets auto-charged to keep his gauge full anytime he needs it. Plus, given that Charge Blade does not require any CG to use while in change mode, makes it even easier to use so he can basically switch on turn 1 to guarantee he can stay tanky as long as he needs. Plus, with being able to overclock metals now, you can honestly go shooting or melee, or even dual in both at level 200 at 100 each, and he will hold himself own pretty well. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him just a little bit lower at about a 7 out of 10. Primarily that even though Charge Buster on both arms doesn't necessarily pack the greatest of stats, and focuses more primarily on the damage bonus that Metaforce Charge does give to it, the full charge on the head really does speak for itself, especially non-heavy no less, as a part that you can use very quickly and very easily. And the high base mobility and evade on the legs, if you do find yourself needing them, is nice to have, but full charge on the head in mixed parts is going to be most certainly where his charm lies if you do need to split the parts.